Hello, everybody, and welcome into this latest edition of the Michigan State Spartans Insider Podcast. I'm your beat reporter for Michigan State Spartans on SI, Aidan Champion, and we're finally in the month of July. You know what that means. Fall camp now just around the corner, later this month, of course. And Spartan fans, I know it's been a long off season filled with departures, with new additions. Lots of good recruiting. You got a new AD. It's been there has been a lot to talk about, but I know the outlook isn't great for Michigan State football going into the season. But I think there's reason to be hopeful and optimistic. Um, the goal is, at least I feel the consensus among the fans, from the fan base, the goal is to make a bowl game. And I think you can do that. And I think you can go beyond that. It's going to depend on a lot of things that we've already talked about throughout the off season, so I'm not going to keep, um, speaking on that. But what I wanted to do today was talk about some guys we haven't necessarily talked about too much. Guys who I think are not being looked at enough going into the season, who could be valuable for this team. So I want to start with the offense. First off, I want to start at tight end, and I want to look at Michael Masunis, who, you know, the big talk with the tight end position, of course, is Jack Velling, and rightfully so. He's supposed to be anticipated to be really one of the best tight ends in the country. But you've also got Michael, who, if you remember, before he got injured last year, had a really promising start to the season. Started the first four games before his injury, and that, of course, was a major blow because, he had worked so hard and finally got into a starting role and was doing well. And then gets hit with that injury, and that's incredibly depleting for an athlete when you finally get your shot and it's just taken from you by something you really can't control. So, he's gonna be back, and I'm sure that, while it was terrible that he had to miss the majority of the season, I'm sure he learned a lot while watching from the sidelines, while probably learning from Jack Velling. Been doing this a while at a high level. And then Brian Wozniak too, tight ends coach, who's great at what he does. But I'm expecting to see a really good Michael Masunis, a guy who can kind of share the load for Jack Velling and also, be an extra blocker out there, which of course we know Michigan State struggled in that department last year with the offensive line, and I'm anticipating that area of the field will be better. I like who they brought in, and I think, um, with the emphasis of uh, of blocking with tight ends this offseason, I think that will help as well because uh, Coach Wozniak wants his guys to be versatile. Um, whether you're an offensive weapon in the receiving game, or you're a great blocker, I mean, he wants it all. And that's something, he emphasizes with his room. So I'm expecting that from Michael, where he is versatile and he just um, comes back better than ever. And I think that's what you always hope for a guy who's coming off a serious injury. And I think he will, and I think we're not talking about him enough. So Michael Masunas, be on the lookout for him. Very underrated, I think. And then I'm gonna look at wide receivers because there's a lot of depth now in that room. probably their deepest room on the team. But I'm going to look at Rodney Bullard. When we talk about the transfers that came in, we really look at Krishan McCray and Omari Kelly. And yeah, those are probably going to be, um, I mean, taking Jack Vallon out of the equation as far as receiving leaders, I'd expect them to be 2 and 3 behind Marsh. Uh, but Rodney Bullard is a guy you can't sleep on. I mean, yeah, it comes from a Division II level with Valdosta State, but uh, helped lead them to a D2 national championship appearance last year. Was a first team all conference honoree, had a thousand, um, 1,001 receiving yards, um, and 12 touchdowns. I mean, that's just that's production that you can't not talk about, no matter what level they're coming from. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm not anticipating him to be necessarily a top 3 leader in receiving, but an experienced guy who comes from a winning program, who excelled at the Division II level. So definitely, you know, a guy you can look to when secondaries are putting all their focus on Marsh or Velling or Omari Kelly or Krishan McCray. Definitely think Rodney Bullard is a guy who um, could be could be sneaky, could come up big in moments that you need him to, and um, just definitely someone who I think is a sleeper when you talk about guys that Michigan State brought in this offseason. Rodney Bullard, pay attention to him. Last but not least, for the offensive side of the ball, I'm thinking Matt Golbin, who's probably going to be your center this season. Is you know, succeeding Tanner Miller, who of course did great in his lone season at Michigan State. But Golbin, comes from Wake Forest and was a all conference honorable mention. Had the second highest pro football focus um, grade for guards in the ACC last year. That's something certainly you can't overlook. But most likely will be playing center. That's where he was taking reps in the spring, and from what coaches were saying, they like him. And I think it's when we're talking about the offensive line, obviously most fans I feel are um, have have concerns, and rightfully so considering last year. But I do think you got better, especially with Connor Moore. But that's the guy most people talk about on this line. I think you should definitely talk about Matt Goldman as well, um, because it's going to be all about the interior um, just as much as it is the exterior, obviously, especially with the run game, something you want to improve on as well, be able to punch it inside. Goldman, I think, is another sleeper. Um, Veteran experience. This is, what is it? I think he's a redshirt senior. He had 4 seasons at Wake Forest, so been around a while. Experience is key, and he's got it. And I just think he's a highly underrated addition to this offensive line. One of the biggest wins of the portal, I think he needed to replace Tanner Kelly or Tanner Miller. Um, Tanner Kelly. And you go and you do it. So, Matt Goldman, another guy to be on the lookout for. We're getting close, guys. We're getting there. Uh, not long now. Hope you all have a great rest of your week, and I will catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.